How's it going, guys? So, coming up this weekend, Lamont Peterson is going to be fighting David Avanesyan for the WBA Regular Welterweight title. Now, let's talk about this fight. First of all, let's break down both fighters. Now, Lamont Peterson, he's a fighter who I've always been a fan of. Now, I've been watching Lamont Peterson for years, seen a lot of his fights, and he's a fighter to me who he's very exciting because he's very versatile. What I mean by that is he's a guy that can fight multiple different styles, depending on the opponent he's got in front of him and depending on the approach to the fight his opponent takes. He's a fighter who adjusts to whatever style is in front of him, and he always comes into every fight with a plan A, B, and C. And what I mean by that is, a perfect example would be the fight that he had against Amir Khan a few years ago. Now, he went into that fight. His plan A was to try and outbox Khan. He was standing at range, trying to have a good jab, but he learned very quickly that that was a bad idea because Amir Khan on the outside was just way too quick for him. I mean, so fast with his hands and his feet that on the outside, if it was going to be a jabbing match, it was a mismatch, and he ended up getting put on the canvas very quickly. The speed from the outside was it just overwhelmed him. I mean, it was really too much. So Lamont Peterson, he figured out very quickly that he had to make an adjustment. So he went to plan B, and he got on his front foot and started applying pressure and started leading and started going to the body and cutting off the ring. And he found that down the stretch of the fight, that was working for him because Amir Khan, although Amir Khan is a great athlete and a great boxer from the outside, what Amir Khan doesn't like is he doesn't like pressure. He can't fight on the inside, and he doesn't like being forced on the back foot. So Lamont Peterson, switching to plan B, he was able to overcome the challenge in front of him. He was able to come back from a horrible start to the fight, and he was able to get himself a win by switching to plan B. And I've seen similar things from Lamont Peterson in his career. Like for example, when he fought Victor Ortiz, he got knocked down early in that fight too, and he got up and he made adjustments and he actually took over the fight, and I actually thought he won that fight. It was competitive, but I thought he took over the fight going down the stretch, and he really did make adjustments. So he's the kind of fighter that he knows how to. He's a technician, put it that way. When he's in the ring, he adjusts on the fly. He'll go into the ring with a certain game plan and a certain mindset for how the fight's going to go, and then that can change during the fight. So that's what I like about Peterson. Okay, he's a very high IQ technician in the ring, and he's also a fairly decent athlete too. He's got very good stamina. He's durable. He can take a shot when he needs to, and he can fight a very hard spirited effort for 12 rounds, as we saw against Amir Khan. I mean, Lamont Peterson, his stamina and his durability and his determination was really on display that night. Now, he's also had he's had his ups and downs in his career though. Like, for example, the only two fights I can really think of where he has been destroyed or dominated, obviously when he got knocked out by Lucas Matisse a couple of years ago. But to be honest, he was having success in that fight prior to the knockout. I just think that Lucas Matisse was just so much physically stronger and so much more powerful that when he caught Peterson, I think it was just all over from then on. Lamont Peterson, he'd just never been in the ring with anybody that hit that hard before, anybody that was that powerful or that physically strong. So he ended up getting overwhelmed. But prior to the knockout, he was actually messing Matisse around a bit. He was causing him a lot of problems. And the other fight where he lost convincingly was against Timothy Bradley. And Timothy Bradley is an underrated boxer who can fight very well from the pocket and also has pretty good movement too. And I think Timothy Bradley, that was one of them fights for me. When a fighter loses and then they go back to the drawing board and then they come back a lot stronger. I think that's what happened with Lamont Peterson there. He went into the ring with Bradley. He had never fought anybody like Bradley before. And Bradley's style and Bradley's boxing IQ, it just overwhelmed him, and it was too much for him. But after that fight, I think Lamont Peterson, he really retooled his game after that fight, and he came back much stronger. And he's looked great ever since that fight. I mean, I really do think he made the right adjustments. And I would like to see a rematch between them two. I would. I think Bradley and Peterson. The first fight obviously it wasn't close. It was an absolute domination. But like I said, I think Peterson is a much better fighter now than he was prior to that fight. So now let's talk about his opponent, David Avanesyan. Now I'm gonna sound heavily critical here of David Avanesyan, but I'm just calling it as it is. And you know me, guys, I don't mince my words. I say it how it is, and I say what I really feel. Now, I've watched a lot of David Avanesyan's fights. Quite a few of his fights are on YouTube, and I have to say, not impressed. Not impressed in the slightest. I mean, his last fight, which was in the early part of last year, he faced a 44-year-old, washed up, shot to shit Sugar Shane Mosley. And I have to say, it's pretty disturbing. If you go and watch that fight, just look at how close and how competitive that fight was and how limited David Avanesyan looked in there. Now, what went on in that fight was the fight started. Shane Mosley had a very positive start to the fight. On the outside, he was the faster guy. He had the better boxing skills, the better athleticism. But the problem is Shane Mosley, at this stage of his career, he just has no stamina. His stamina is completely gone. And his reflexes are completely gone too. So going down the stretch, he just couldn't maintain what he was doing, and Avanesyan was able to just claw his way back into the fight with just simple, basic, straight up and down tactics, and won the fight by a very close, very I wouldn't say controversial, but let's just say I wouldn't have complained either way. Put it that way. It was that kind of fight. It was nip and tuck, and it was only because of Shane Mosley's lack of stamina and lack of reflexes at his old age that was why he didn't destroy Avanesyan. I mean, if Shane Mosley had been just a couple of years younger, I think he would have taken Avanesyan out. I really do. I mean, it was quite jarring to see how easy he was able to land hooks to the body. David Avanesyan, he's one of these fighters. He's got a defensive construct which consists of a guard. A lot of obviously it's basic boxing. You put your hands up, you use it as a tight guard. But the problem is he doesn't tuck his elbows in to protect body shots. And I noticed in that Mosley fight that every time Mosley decided to go to the body, he was landing flush. I mean, he was landing his body shots with ease in the fight. I mean, David Avanesyan just has no idea how to defend to the body. There was very little head movement from Avanesyan. He was very slow on his feet. His hand speed is okay, decent hand speed, but he wasn't as fast as Mosley. And Mosley at this stage of his career is nowhere near as fast as he used to be. So I mean, it was really insane to see. Like I said, it was just Shane Mosley's lack of stamina and slow reflexes which led to him losing the fight. But if he'd have been a little bit younger, he would have won that fight handily. Now, I seen another fight of David Avanesyan. I've seen quite a few of his fights, but one other fight that I noticed, it was a fight he had in England, and he was fighting this journeyman dude from Ireland, and the guy caught him with a counter shot, and he was all over the place. The shot didn't even look like it was a big shot or anything. It was kind of a grazing blow, and David Avanesyan was acting as if he'd just been hit, with a serious shot, and it really makes me question his punch resistance. Now, the other fights are really not worth talking about because most of the guys he's fought are just journeymen. Other than Shane Mosley, he really hasn't fought anybody. I mean, he fought some fringe contender for the WBA interim title in Monaco. That was in 2015. The only time he fought last year was against Shane Mosley, and then he sat the rest of the year out. I believe he was hoping to get a shot at Keith Thurman, who was the full WBA champion, but Keith Thurman obviously ended up signing to fight Danny Garcia, which is happening next month, I believe. So, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. And they've given Lamont Peterson this fight now. Now it goes without saying, doesn't it, that I'm picking Lamont Peterson to win this fight. I think Lamont Peterson. Look, if Lamont Peterson doesn't win this fight, in fact, if he doesn't win this fight convincingly, I will be surprised. In fact, I'll be shocked. I mean, what I see from David Avanesyan is I see a very basic, very one-dimensional, straight up and down fighter with absolutely no fluidity to his game whatsoever. And Lamont Peterson, like I said, I really highly rate Lamont Peterson. If there was any concerns about Lamont Peterson, I would say, well, he has been off for a year. In fact, more than a year. I think, how long has Lamont Peterson been off? I can't remember, but I'm sure he hasn't fought for the past year. So, he's been out of the ring for a while, but I did watch some training footage, and he looks as if he's in relatively good shape. I seen him on the pads and whatnot. He looks sharp. So, yeah, I think Lamont Peterson, his full arsenal of attacks is going to be on display here. He's going to be able to hit this guy with hooks to the body coming forward if he chooses to. If he chooses to box on the back foot, Lamont Peterson has outboxed far better fighters than this. Okay, like I said, I mean, he outboxed Victor Ortiz. He outboxed Thierry Jean, who I think is a much better fighter than this guy. In my opinion, he beat Danny Garcia. I know some people disagree, but I thought Lamont Peterson beat Danny Garcia clearly. I thought on the outside, he was easily able to outwit and outbox Danny Garcia. Even coming forward, he had some success. So, I feel that Lamont Peterson in this fight, I don't see how he loses. I mean, unless Lamont Peterson is affected by the long layoff and unless he has an injury or something, I see him comfortably outboxing Avanesyan and winning a clear, wide decision. And a stoppage wouldn't surprise me either because Lamont Peterson, he's got very good stamina. He's a good athlete. He's not a puncher. He's not much of a knockout puncher. But because I just feel that there's such a wide gap in talent here and gap in skill, I think that Lamont Peterson, I think he can stop this guy. Like if he's able to force a cut or he lands so many body shots that the guy's just out of gas. Because like I said, this guy's so easy to hit to the body that it's laughable. Um, I can kind of see it being like the Canelo Liam Smith fight where Liam Smith was coming forward and putting his guard up and trying to walk Canelo down with a tight guard, but then Canelo easily adjusted to that by just going round the guard with his hooks and stuff like that, and then throwing combinations, hooks and uppercuts to the body and whatnot. And I can see this being a similar situation. I can see Lamont Peterson easily getting around this guy's guard and just easily outboxing him. And I can see Lamont Peterson dominating this fight. Because Lamont Peterson isn't much of a puncher, I'm gonna say by decision, but a late stoppage would not surprise me. Okay, I mean, Paulie Malignaggi. I mean, he was able to get stoppages in his career, and the guy has literally no power, but he was able to stop a couple of guys on, facial damage and whatnot. Like he stopped Shenchenko, who was the WBA champion at the time. Malignaggi managed to get the stoppage there when no one thought he could. So, even a non-puncher at times, they can mark up your face and they can do damage and they can get a stoppage. It's circumstantial, but it can happen. So, I'm going with Peterson. I think it's going to be a wide decision, but like I said, stoppage wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, now look, if David Avanesyan wins this fight, if he's able to pull this off, then I owe him a big apology video. Yeah, if he pulls it off, that I will definitely be apologizing to the dude because I was very critical in this video, but I just don't see it. And one thing I forgot to mention too is that he's being trained by Carl Greaves now. I don't rate him as a trainer at all. I mean, he's trained a lot of British masters level fighters, journeymen here in the UK, and I really don't. I just don't rate his tactics. I've heard him in the corner for many fights, and yeah, let's just say I don't rate him at all as a trainer. I think he's very rudimentary, and I don't think he really can match up to the people that Lamont Peterson has got around him. So yeah, I see Lamont Peterson winning this fight. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.